Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone. It is my great pleasure to be allowed to open the third European Week for Knowledge Valorisation. And I am particularly pleased that we zoom in this year on the topic of sustainability. Sustainability is the challenge of our era, the challenge for humanity, to manage to organize our societies in such a way that we ultimately live within our planet's boundaries, not just to save the climate, but to save the planet more generally. I would argue that we are in a very serious race against time, and that in order to win this race, we should be thinking about the Olympic motto, which is Citius, Altius, Fortius, meaning faster, higher, stronger. We need, and we know that, many more breakthroughs in knowledge, in technologies, in order to win that race. We do not have today all the technologies we need to get to, for instance, a zero emissions society. And so what will be essential on the path will be to improve the management of our intellectual assets, definitely the strengthening of our entrepreneurial culture, but also a whole of society approach where citizens and local communities participate fully and rightly so. We have benefited recently from a very timely adoption of a Council recommendation on guiding principles for knowledge valorization. This was adopted on the 2nd of December last year, and I see this very much as a collective European commitment to accelerate the translation of R&I results into solutions to save our planet. And I'm very happy to see also that this has led to national mobilization around this recommendation with, for instance, last week, an event in the Czech Republic. Now I would like to turn to our first guest, but guest who will also be playing a central role throughout this week. It's my pleasure to greet Pia Erkinheimo, who is Director for Innovation of the Finnish Climate Fund. Pia, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Pia, can I perhaps start by inquiring about your present job? I have been told that you have an extremely pertinent experience when talking about knowledge valorization, as you have been very active also on the startup scene. But now in your job, what is exactly the mission of the Finnish Climate Fund, and how are you going about it?
Well, thank you. Our mission is to combat climate change, boost low-carbon industry, and accelerate digitalization supporting these two goals. We are a 24-month-old fund, and it's very well in line with the goals of Finland being the first carbon-neutral country in the world by 2035. So we are serious about it, and we've been now making investments on market basis worth 145 million euros, since we are always in minority. So it means that other source of funding, other source of private investments have also been addressed to these 15 innovations, which are already in scaling phase. So what we are looking in these 15 companies is both economical success, but also climate impact, which we are measuring, for example, with CO2 equivalent tons.
You were saying 15 innovations in scaling, and you were talking about the national ambition of Finland to be climate neutral 15 years ahead of the overall EU goal. On my side, I was suggesting that there was still quite a gap to fill in terms of the required technologies to get there. So could you perhaps indicate to us a bit more in detail what these 15 innovations you are helping to scale up are about, perhaps one or the other example?
Yes, well, first of all, what I'd like to point out is the enormous challenge that we are facing, because we are not only talking about climate change, we're also talking about biodiversity, we're also talking about nature loss. And if we look at Stockholm's Resilience Center, which is talking about 9 planetary boundaries that we need to take into account. But what I think is important when we think like how do we get from science to practice to make prosperous companies which are changing our structure and in every domain, is that we should look things industry agnostics, and we should be also technology agnostic. I've been heard that we can make it as humans, but only 50% the innovation that is needed to make our planet to be, enough for population of plus 8 billion human beings. Only 50% is or has already been kind of out from the universities. So there is a lot to be studied, a lot to be researched. But on the other hand, there can be technologies from 1960s that only now realize to the other enabling technologies that make them happen, or because the business case just wasn't there. So I'm very optimistic when it comes to technology, but that's not enough, because we also need to think that for this change we need not only engineers, business case people or natural scientists, we also need philosophers, we also need social and behavioral scientists, we need designers. So this is truly how we look at it, is kind of a technology agnostic, industry agnostic, and we need all disciplines of science to do that. So what it means for us at Climate Fund, so we are of course involved now with 3 hydrogen cases. That's very strong in Europe and in the Nordics. Then we are in food tech, 1 company in that domain. Then we are looking for plastics upscaling. That would be something very strongly. And on digital side, there cannot be a climate solution without digitalizations. So with the help of digitalization, let's say replacing cement when producing concrete with side streams. We know that 7% of the planet's emissions are only coming from building with concrete, for example. So these, with the help of artificial intelligence, we can solve these challenges also by digitalization. And then what we also notice that since we are in a hurry, so we are looking for those technologies that are moving the needle fastest, which puts us then to look at the waste, mining, electricity. So it's all of this. And also I'm a mother, so what may shock my children, had shocked a bit my children, is that actually the idea of us humans getting our everyday nutrition, i.e. food, so even our food system is broken, because cultivating food creates emissions enormously, more than 20%. So this is what we've been thinking, and also personally devoted to that. We need cross-sectoral, cross-disciplinary thinking, and we can find climate solutions in very interesting domains.
You were just mentioning the need for cross-disciplinary thinking, which brings me quite naturally to my second question to you. What do you think are really the key ingredients to achieve a more efficient uptake of research results?
Well, first of all, I would like to pinpoint that I feel strongly that Europe is actually is a thought leader among our reference group when it comes to venture capital and investments into growth companies and startups. I don't want to neglect at all what happens in California, for example, or Colorado, or New York area. But what I've seen now, just very recently, and unfortunately, most likely accelerated by the horrible war we have in our continent, is that climate tech and digital climate tech investors in Europe are now actively looking each other in order to share risk and fund even more great innovations in Europe. So this is one way. In practice, I saw that people were connecting to each other very actively, let's say from last fall onwards. And this is one way, at least, get the social uptake and the results, from the distinguished academia and great science we do in the world, but especially now in the context of EU, so in Europe. So this is one way of doing it. On the other hand, we need to realize, and I was just alert by PitchBook's statistics last weekend about the fact that the amount of startup and VC startup investments last year compared to what happened this quarter, so January, February, March, declined 32% regarding their statistics. So the stats look very good still when it comes to startup funding for the last year. But now really the volatile situation, we don't need to mention Silicon Valley banks and what happened here. So they are now really hitting the market, slowness, kind of hesitation in the investments. And then, of course, one thinks that then the role of public financing should be counter-cyclical. But this is just, statistics from yesterday that 32% less investments to made in Europe for startups in January, February, March compared to October, November, December.
I think you also touched on having to look at society overall. Can I zoom in on the role of citizens and local community? Where would you see exactly their role? And do you have some positive examples of how their engagement, their mobilization has been stimulated successfully?
I'm a bottom-up girl, so I've been working with open innovation almost ever since my working life, and what is really kind of a citizen-centric innovation, and how to get things like going as of movements, and of course the acceleration of internet-like technologies have of course boosted that. So when it comes to this kind of grassroots activity or citizen activity, I think that is actually currently one of the driving forces when it comes to climate change. People are aware, people realize, people see it in their everyday life. And that's one very important behavioral change in the market as of a whole, because our For example, younger generations are very aware of this. Now, the challenge what I see here is how to change it into action. And according to research done on 32 OECD countries among students, university students aged 21, 25, were indicated that climate anxiety is something that is really of concern of our youth, our generations to come. And it's my and our generation's responsibility to start fixing what our grandparents did, because and we are doing it for that generation. What I'm worried about actually is that the dystopic information about our planetary boundaries being met or an overconsumption, and the messages from climate change may actually paralyze some of those active groups of people. And this was also shown in this comparative study from October 22. So I'm also asking for a gospel of hope that we can do this, because there is already so many scientific evidence that by 2050 we have all the technologies and all the resources to, for example, make our energy system zero neutral, if we just want to do that. But we need some money. So I feel like that the examples may look at more kind of rebellion. For example, Extinction Rebellions, that's a movement that's been in Brussels and in the Nordic countries and UK. Young people are really on the barricade and blocking streets and damaging art, pieces of art. But on the other hand, when I was discussing with teenagers, they were saying that, hey, this doesn't make sense, because all the public attention goes to now, what kind of problems is the blocking of streets causing to people, not anymore getting enough attention for the real cause. So I feel at the moment we should, praise the solutions, because I think that the dystopian picture that's being painted of climate change, of biodiversity problems, of nature laws, we already know that. So let's celebrate more, and I think this Valorization Week is a great example of celebrating, how we can do it.
There are a few terms I will be repeating when wrapping up. Thank you very much for these. Let's perhaps end with one more question, as many of us, including in the audience, are active as part of research and innovation funding organizations or programs. What, when it comes to them, to us, I'm also part of it, should we do to ensure ultimately a better market and societal uptake of the research results?
This is a very good question. The crucial is now time. As IPCC reports that this is the decade when we need to do the most, actually, when we need to get so many things moving. And then the inertia of funding instruments on the public side for research, for example, is something that we should really think, how can we make shortcuts? How can we make, bold investments? And how can we accelerate the decision making? This is something that should be, in our hands even better than going to the sometimes tiring and very long discussion of budgets, etc. If one thinks the structures, for example, here in the EU, but how could we accelerate things? How can we ask from the projects, research project, that you are asking funding for 36 months? How about doing the 24? Like the same money, but you do it shorter. Because somehow we need to, it's also very good for the competition, by the way, to be earlier in the market, because there is very much positive competition. I think the planet will thank for the enthusiasm and also the markets that are forming now for green technologies in all sectors of industry. But that would be like my very humble 2 cents, that how could we make these things happen faster? And that's because it's too long time.
Well, Pia, thank you very much. I don't know where to start. You said really quite a few striking things, so I will probably not do you fully justice, do the bottom-up girl fully justice, but I will certainly repeat a few of the elements you indicated. I think one striking statement of yours is that there is no climate solution without the digital and artificial intelligence dimension. It is perhaps something which today we are not yet that fully aware of. Secondly, I was also struck that you were referring also to all the technologies which can gain a second youth in a different context, and I think indeed knowledge valorization is also about not forgetting things which might be somewhere in archives, but which might come in very handily today. I would end by the term gospel of hope, and as part of that gospel to praise the solutions we have. I would very much agree that yes, the challenge is huge, yes, time is short, but we should definitely not fall into defeatism. We can do it, no doubt, but it will indeed require a mobilization of the whole of our societies, of all the academic disciplines, because they all have something to contribute, as you indicated. Thank you very much for this very nice exchange. I will now turn to what comes next, and I understand that you are a central protagonist to really kick off this third week of knowledge valorization with a first webinar which is entitled No Place Like Home, Community Engagement for Sustainable Solutions. So you will certainly be able to prolong on some of the topics we just scratched the surface of right now. But more generally, let me thank you for your attention and wish everyone a very engaging, very enriching week. And I would want to point also to the last day. I'm sure you will not be exhausted by then, where inspired by the European Year of Skills, we will be offering with our partners from the European Patent Office and many others some free online trainings for the management of assets and in particular intellectual property assets. Thank you very much and enjoy the week.